You are listening to TMBDOS. They must be destroyed on sight. Discussions of an adult nature, adult language, and spoilers for the films discussed are most likely. Still on board? Come on in. Enjoy your stay.
They must be destroyed on sight.
The movie will begin in 5 moments, the mindless voice announced. All those unseated will await the next show. We filed slowly, languidly into the hall. The auditorium was vast and silent. As we seated and were darkened, the voice continued. The program for this evening is not new. You have seen this entertainment through and through. You've seen your birth, your life and death. You might recall all of the rest. Did you have a good world when you died? Enough to base a movie on? Getting out of here. Where are you going? To the other side of morning. Please don't chase the clouds, pagodas. Her cunt gripped him like a warm, friendly hand. It's all right, all your friends are here. When can I meet them? After you've eaten. I'm not hungry. Oh, we meant beaten. Silver stream, silvery scream. Ooh, impossible concentration.
All right, we're back. It is They Must Be Destroyed on Sight, episode 113, and I'm your host, Lee Russell, and I'm joined by my co-host, Daniel Harper. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. 113. That's an omen, right? So it feels a little like maybe not the place we need to be for a best of list. We're going for it. We're going for it. It's the thing.
It's the scattershot reality of the fact that our schedules have been so fucked that it didn't, and in a perfect world, it would have showed up at like 125 or something like that. But
we only did 20 or 30 episodes last year. We went like 2 months without really producing anything together. So hopefully this year we will do better. That's sort of the goal, I think. But
I mean, considering this year was not necessarily great for the progress of humanity overall, I do think it was pretty goddamn great for my movie watching, and I would even say 2017 itself was pretty goddamn fucking good for movies for the most part, at least in certain areas. And I mean that's kind of a general truism anyway, that when the rest of the world's gone to shit, at least the movies tend to be better because they're responding to it to some degree, right?
Right. Art gets better as the world goes to shit. That's sort of the way things go. So
that's the sad irony of art. To have good art, you have to have pain and destruction, apparently, to make it happen. But we're doing our best of 2017, and of course this is our best first time watches for 2017, so it's not necessarily movies from 2017. We did put it out there for our listeners if they so wanted to add lists into this. We had 2 responses, and actually that's 2 more responses than I actually expected. I know when you put it out there, you can send it in by email. That's like the death knell to actually getting responses, because no one trusts sending stuff by email anymore. And
who even uses email anymore? I don't even check my email anymore. My email is all spam and spam. That's basically it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And people telling me to pay my student loans. That's about it.
Yeah, so we'll go to the listener list here first, and get through this, and then we'll get to our stuff. Probably our biggest booster, our biggest supporter here, CV Fall. sent in one pick, and and to be fair, I put it out there. If you only have one movie in 2017 that was your best new watch for 2017, send it in. And he says High Noon was his best new movie for 2017. So there you go.
Well, you can't really disagree with that. I mean,
no, and I'm almost tempted to put High Noon on my list, although I had seen it before. But after doing the episode, it's like, oh, I'm watching a totally different movie now. So I could almost count that as like a new watch. But
yeah, there's one on my list that's definitely I had seen this before, but not through the same eyes, so I included it as a first time watch. So, I don't know. I feel like these, especially if it's been a while or if you're kind of, I don't know, the point of the list is not to, create some objective standard. It's the point is to create something that's worth talking about. For me, my list is definitely, I didn't watch that much stuff this year. I've been busy with other things. So I really just kind of went through the list of movies released this year and the list of movies that we covered and just sort of picked 10 that I thought would be interesting to sort of talk about a little bit. But I really just didn't 2016. I watched over 100 films because I made the effort to do so. And I think last year I saw maybe 20.
Yeah, I think my film watching was pretty slow as well. I didn't log everything I watched on Letterboxd, although I basically just use Letterboxd to log stuff I think is worth talking about, whether it's good or bad. But overall, I probably saw about 70 films this year, I think, is where it sort of sits. And a lot of them came at the very close of the year, the last couple months. I binged a lot of stuff. We'll go to the other user-submitted list here. Or listener submitted list, user submitted list, like we're a fucking computer program or something. Jesus Christ.
That's where we're going in 2018. We're gonna be a software. We're going to blockchain, motherfucker. That's what we're doing.
You can send all your bitcoins into us. It'll be good stuff. Yeah, Jeff Williams, who I'm just gonna say it right now. He's my new favorite listener because he's been interacting on the Facebook group. They Must Be Destroyed on Sight on Facebook, the single best way to get in touch with us and find out what's going on in the podcast. But he put this list together, and I'm really interested in seeing what your reaction to this is because I think you probably are familiar with more films on this than I am. I'll just say this right now. Out of his entire list, there's only one film on this list I've seen. And
oh, wow.
There's only one film on this list that goes past 1967, I think. 66, I guess. Yeah, there's one film on this that goes past 1966. So I'm going to go through his list here. The first one he mentions is The Man with the Movie Camera from 1929. He says a surprisingly light and playful Russian documentary about life, death, and everything else. Have you ever heard of that one?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Okay.
I've heard nice things, but my knowledge of Russian cinema of the teens and 20s is unfortunately lacking. It never seems to be the thing that I go oh yes, let's watch old Eisenstein films. Yeah,
well, I think also kind of anything that comes from that area of the world is kind of hard to get information about and to dig into, unless it's a propaganda film of some sort,
Well, what's interesting is that 20 years ago when you and I were first kind of coming up in this, streaming internet wasn't a thing, streaming video just wasn't a thing. And so you had to have either a DVD or you had to download it from some torrent site over, dial-up effectively.
Yeah, Jesus, yeah.
I remember times when I would spend 3 days downloading something, just to watch it, So, the world just isn't like that anymore. But our formative years have passed. But I definitely would check it out sometime. I just don't know it. So let's just go through the rest of the list. Or
his second one he's going to mention here is Sundays and Cybele. From 1962, a poignant French character study with two stellar performances by Hardy Kruger and Patricia Gozzi. That's one I've never heard of.
I don't know it.
Yeah, and then the thing about this list is that it kind of intrigued me. Is this is all stuff we should just throw on to our master list and
definitely. That's what I'm saying. And anything that a fan of ours is saying is something that was a favorite first watch this year that we haven't even heard of needs to go on immediately onto our master list.
Yeah. Third one, and this is the only film on this list I'd actually heard of and I'd actually seen. This is Blow Up from 1966. He says a classic Italian anti-giallo from Antonioni. Yeah, this is a David Hemmings film. This is this is the film that really got him into stardom. Of course, we've covered David Hemmings on Deep Red and Heroin Busters, and I've seen this one, and this is good. This is one where a photographer takes a photograph and thinks he's found a murder on the photograph, like he's seen a murder.
I think we need to do Blow Up and Blow Out as a as a 2-part episode.
Right.
I think that would be a great twofer. Also, you can't talk about David Hemmings without talking about Barbarella. That's,
right.
That's clearly the great David Hemmings performance is
Yeah. His next one, The Breaking Point from 1950, a loyal, serious adaptation of To Have and to Have Not with John Garfield.
Yeah.
Interesting. His next one, Intruder in the Dust, 1949, Faulkner's proto To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, well, that definitely sounds interesting.
Yeah, that sounds wrong with authority-ish. Kind of.
Yeah, well, we'll see about. I mean, I don't know, but Faulkner and To Kill a Mockingbird. I mean, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Next one, The Best Years of Our Lives from 1946, a moving post-World War II drama.
This I have seen. This is one of the great masterpieces of cinema. It's one of those post-war, about what was lost from the men who went and left so much behind. I mean, it's actually a man without hands, a man who had actually lost his hands in real life. It's also kind of about disability, and it's a phenomenal film. It's absolutely worth seeing and covering at some point.
Sounds up our alley, yeah.
It's one of Roger Ebert's favorite films as well.
All right. Knights of Cabiria, 1957, Fellini classic with poor Giulietta Messina getting dumped on.
I know the title. I have not seen it.
That's the thing. We should probably do some Fellini at some point because I've never seen a Fellini film.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we should get into it. I mean, I don't know why I've never seen a Fellini film. I've never been adverse to it. It's just never happened. So we should at least do some Fellini at some point on the podcast. Yeah. His next one. Yeah, the next one, The Big Parade, 1925, a moving post-World War I drama. Okay.
No, don't know that one at all.
His next one, Crash Out from 1955, a tense prison break noir with a great cast of character actors. Oh, that sounds awesome. I'm up for that. Any sort of prison break that must be noirish as fuck.
Yeah.
So we'll get on that definitely. His next one, Murder by Contract, another one that sounds right by the title. Something we're gonna go after. A new wave style American noir that heavily influenced Scorsese. Okay. Yeah, that's a must. Yeah. We're gonna be on that. And he's got a couple honorable mentions here. He says The Mediator from 1990, a Russian made for TV sci-fi movie that plays like an Andrei Tarkovsky version of the X-Files. I like the idea of that.
Yeah.
Then he says Somewhere in the Night, 1946, solid unsung film noir with John Hodak as a World War II vet with amnesia trying to find out about his sordid past. Nice. We should actually do a series on movies about like guys with amnesia and shit. Like do this and do like Memento and stuff like that. Yeah, that'd be something.
All these sound like really again interesting titles, things that off my radar for the most part. And let's just throw that whole list onto our to watch list.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, and his final one, The Mad Magician from 1954, a John Brom thriller with Vincent Price. We're up for that too.
You got me Vincent Price, right?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much, Jeff. I've been stewing on this list now for like 2 weeks or whatever. When you first put it in, I was excited to get to it on this episode just to share it with Daniel. I think all these things are actually just going to end up on our master list. So, I mean, within the coming year, maybe coming 2 years,
within the coming 5 years, we'll definitely get to at least half of those. The way we go with this, the master list it gets longer, and we just we just refer to it when, oh, that's on the list. Let's do that at some point. So yeah, no.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's great, Jeff. Thank you very much. Very much appreciated for you sharing those films with us. So we'll move on to what we've watched in the last little while. I don't really have anything to mention, but I know Daniel has a couple things, so I'll let you go.
Sure. Well, I did see The Last Jedi. Went to the theater. There were a couple, I want to say teenagers, but they were really in their 20s, sitting 4 seats over, and they talked through the whole fucking thing. You do want to punch them in the face. But that aside, the Alamo has closed in Kalamazoo, and that's one reason I didn't see as many films this year, because the film experience is just not worth it anymore. But I really liked The Last Jedi. I would put it probably behind only Rogue One and Empire in terms of
where I'd sit it.
List of. The Force Awakens I finally watched this year. I literally just avoided it completely. I just didn't care, I watched it just so I could watch The Last Jedi because Rian Johnson, and I'm a big Rian Johnson fan, and it was like, okay, well, I gotta see this one, and I love the shaky dogginess of it. I love the way the story works. I love the plot is basically this very old school sci-fi kind of thing where we have to keep away from the bad guys, but until we run out of fuel,
it's the new Battlestar Galactica, isn't it?
See, I never watched the new Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, well, that's actually like basically the major plot point of like the first little bit of the new Battlestar Galactica. They're always trying to warp ahead of the Cylons, and the Cylons are always on their tail catching them. So it's basically the exact same thing, but it's great. Like I'm happy that Star Wars.
It's a very old school sci-fi thing. Very like the very first Honor Harrington novel by David Weber kind of does the same kind of basic idea. Okay. It's very, very like kind of classic sci-fi, and I love anytime you can bring those kind of tropes into it, and you can kind of criticize some of the science. Who cares? It's Star Wars, right?
When Star Wars actually brings sci-fi stuff into it, that's interesting. I'm all fucking for it.
I know people say, well, the plot is like tiny because it's just like, well, they're just running away from the Empire, or from the First Order the entire. Like, who cares? This is just such a tiny little story. It's like, dude, have you thought about the plots of any of the previous films? It's always some little thing that blows up into something bigger. Like this is no. I love the multiple subplots. It gets a little bit like, sometimes it feels like the film is trying to juggle just a little bit too much. It's trying to it's definitely over ambitious for what it can actually achieve. But I kind of love that. I kind of love the idea that it's really swinging for the fences, really going for this sort of thematic weight, and really just confident in the audience is just going to kind of follow where the film wants to go. I really enjoyed this film a lot. I was honestly, and this is big manly man here, I was in tears at several points in this film, out of just how happy it made me and how moving in so many ways, in some really subtle ways as well. I found
it's amazing to see the criticisms of this. And I'm not a big major Star Wars fan or anything like that.
Yeah, me either. I kind of grew up with it, but it was just sort of like, I always loved the aesthetics of Star Wars. Right. I loved Luke Skywalker having Force powers, but the story never really did anything for me. Like, I was never like that kid, but I grew up with it just in my brain. I don't remember the first time I saw The Empire Strikes Back. The Empire Strikes Back has always been a part of my life. Right.
The best thing I love about these films is that not only do they feel like they're back in the actual Star Wars universe, there's this lived-in feel to everything where there's a lot of practical effects and everything looks rusty and dented and shit. I love how subversive this one is to the actual formula of it, where it's basically saying outright, we're getting away from the Skywalkers. We're getting away from that shit. We're going in a new direction. We're no longer going into this mythological fucking bullshit fucking storyline that has been sort of almost a cancer to the later films. We're going in a new direction, and I can see why a lot of people sort of push against that. And I also love that, what's her name? Rey she ends up being a nobody. Like, she's just the daughter of nobodies. And that's great. I fucking love that. That the message that nobodies can, feel the Force and move up.
We could get a lot into the idea of like this sort of idea of what the Force is, and like the Force sensitive people represent this upper caste of like special people, which works great if you're trying to tell a narrative about the most specialist boy in the universe who's father was a Jedi and who gets a poor farm boy on Tatooine, but doesn't really work all that well when you consider like what message that's actually sending about like people's value in the universe.
I've always, this is one of the things that's always made me push back on Star Wars, is that I've always resented the fact that it was always treated as a religious thing. And it was, and I mean, when you look at it, this just goes back to my atheism, where it's like, yeah, religion fucks things up and ruins the universe.
Well, I would love if we find in Star Wars 9, and I have no faith in J.J. Abrams to actually execute this. So let's. But I would love to find out in Star Wars 9. It turns out anyone can be a Jedi.
Yeah.
If they find somebody who will actually train them in the use of the Force, etc. And that it wasn't some like special thing that only the Skywalker clan and some other like special people got to have.
It just feels like stupid, like dogma and shit from the actual Jedi religion that only certain people can do this. It's like, no, that's actually bullshit. It's just been the sort of power structure of the Jedi over the centuries that has sort of made that a reality. That's the actual truth.
Well, Rey has the books now, so there is maybe she teaches herself. I'm cautiously optimistic that they're going to do something interesting with that, but it is fucking J.J. Abrams, so like I have
I know. But I mean, in this movie, also just the fact that Kylo Ren, people are like, oh, he's such a bitch, he's such a whiny this and that, and he's weak. Well, it's like he's every goddamn fucking neo-Nazi right now. He's not
really
a real. He's not a real Nazi. He's one of these neo-Nazis. He's one of these fucking wannabes.
He's a kid who put on the mask because he thought it made him look cool, and he gets called out for it by his boss. Yeah, but, I mean, he's terrifying because he's trying to live up to this ideal, and that's a very 2017 kind of thing to have,
Go to American History X. Fucking Kylo Ren is Edward Norton, and Snoke is Stacy Keach.
Yeah.
I love it. I actually like this movie a lot more now that I think about it, and I love the direction at least this movie went. I have no hope for it to continue this in the future, but I love where this movie went with all the sort of Star Wars stuff. It kind of
I'm treading slightly lightly on some of the spoilers, just for people who might not have seen it, but.
I think it's a good follow-up to Rogue One. I'll put it that way.
Oh, definitely. And honestly, like, I feel like, and this is, I mean, it's weird to say this, but you could see this and not really know anything about Star Wars. Honestly, like you don't, The Force Awakens was made by almost by committee of like, this is all the stuff that Star Wars people love, etc. I don't love The Force Awakens. I mean, The Force Awakens, it's fine, but it doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
Rogue One and The Last Jedi really do something for me. Like, there really is like a beating heart to this, and it doesn't feel like just kind of meaningless cash grab,
Last Jedi breaks it all down to ground level and kind of starts things over again and kind of demystifies a lot of shit and kind of dispels a lot of things, and I love it for it. I really do. It didn't make my top list for this year, but I mean, it's that close to an honorable mention. It just goes back to the fact that I'm not that big of a Star Wars fan, but I mean, still.
Well, I saw this in 2018, but it would go on my list if I had seen it.
Fair enough. Yeah. So you had anything else you watched?
I did, and after we got off the phone last time when we recorded, I had a few beers. I think you might have heard that in my voice, and I put on Once Upon a Time in Venice.
Nice.
This sounds like exactly the kind of stupid bullshit movie that is a great, quite alcohol-soaked watch. And what you didn't tell me was it is written and directed by the person who wrote Cop Out.
Oh, I didn't know that. So
yes, it is. I looked it up, and oh my God, can you tell? in this film. It's such that same style of humor, that sort of really one note kind of like, we're going to be vaguely offensive, but get just up to that line to where we're not allowed to say this anymore. But at the same time, like, not really do anything all that interesting with it. The film is pretty enjoyable overall. It's sort of like something that I spent 99 cents on a rental from Amazon. Yeah. Although I just looked it up a few minutes ago, and it's now a $4.99 rental, and I don't think it's worth a $4.99 rental, but it was worth the 99 cents I paid for it. So I don't know, like, why it went up by $5. I don't know. Maybe they were running some like post-Christmas sale or whatever when I checked it out. I think the big problem for me is that Bruce Willis is horribly miscast. I feel like he's a little bit too much of a straightforward tough guy and doesn't strike me as kind of a goofy skater.
He doesn't feel natural as that kind of guy. Like,
I feel like the Owen Wilson is who should be playing this role. This isn't a Bruce Willis role, you know?
Yeah.
Ironically, I could see Bruce Willis more playing the John Goodman role.
Goodman role, yeah.
Although John Goodman is really good at it. I love how like effeminate he is, and how, especially in the last third, he really kind of comes into his own. You know. Yeah.
Like I said, he kind of steals it away after like there. Yeah.
It's a pretty enjoyable film. I mean, it goes down pretty easy, but it's 90 minutes long, and I was kind of checking the time quite a bit.
Did you catch the ADR moments where
I did, yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of there are a lot of really weird decisions made in this film. I almost want to do it as a commentary, just so we can like I mean, it's worth dissecting minute by minute, because there are a lot of really good decisions mixed in with a lot of really bad decisions. And again, it does have that Shaggy Dog, characteristic. Yeah. It does have that sort of, we're going to throw a bunch of plots together, and it creaks together pretty well as far as that goes.
Yeah, I mean,
I just feel like it's a little bit like we're 25 years past Reservoir Dogs, and this is what Tarantino hath wrought on the world, right? You know, this is just the kind of baseline standard thing, you know. Although I think there's a Kevin Smith reference in this. Did you catch it?
I didn't see it. No.
No. There's a Kevin Smith. It's Steve and Dave are kind of the and Steve Dave is a major like kind of callback.
Right. Okay.
To, Kevin Smith's earliest films. So it was definitely one of those like, oh, I see, you're doing that thing. So Once Upon a Time in Venice will not make my best stuff list for 2018.
Oh shit.
But if you can see it for free or cheap, it's not a terrible way to while away an hour and a half.
Yeah, I mean, it's on Netflix, so I mean, just at least Canadian Netflix, so you know.
Oh, it wasn't on American Netflix. I had to.
Okay. Oh shit. So. You guys weren't fortunate enough to get it. Wow.
Apparently not.
Yeah, there we go. We'll take a very quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll start into our best ofs of 2017, best first time watches. There we go.
Awesome.
You ungodly warlock.
Hello and welcome to Hello, This is the Doom Show. I'm Richard.
And I hate the burning.
Shh, who are you? Speak.
And I'm Brad.
She came in and said, "Buck, buck, buck," and he said, "Buck, buck, buck," and she said, "Buck, buck, buck, buck." That's what I got.
One is the Suspiria boner, the other's the Inferno boner. Anyway.
Which one is crying? The boner of tears.
Hello, This is the Doomed Show is available on hellodoomedshow.podomatic.com and doomedmoviethon.com.
Hello, this is the Doom Show. Richard, Brad, Jeffrey, Nava. It's the Doom Show. Hello, this is the Doom Show. Slashers, giallo, and horror.
Badasses, Boobs, and Body Counts is a weekly podcast that discusses all things grindhouse, exploitation, drive-in, and B-movies. Your three hosts, Mike.
We're going to discuss the Renee Martinez directed picture, The $6,000 Last
What?
time.
Wait, whoa.
That's the name of the movie.
Super Soul Brother.
That's the name.
When you start
Look
the movie,
at your DVD cover.
when you start the movie, the first thing that
That's
comes
what it
up is the
says.
title, and it says
$6,000.
Mark.
And I've been around a girl stroking a horse's dick.
Somehow, somewhere down the line, I'm going to use that clip against you.
Shh. Good. Please do.
And listener favorite Iris.
The deployment sock. And I'm like, deployment sock? What the fuck is a deployment sock? He goes, you know that sock that you just use? Oh my god, you guys are so gross. See, so it happens for real. People do come in socks.
Will make you question your political correctness while laughing at theirs. Episodes drop Sunday and can be found by searching for BB and BC Podcast via iTunes, Libsyn, Stitcher, Google Play Music, and everywhere else you can download quality podcasts from. You can also listen to episodes directly from the show's website at bbnbcpodcast.com.
You ungodly warlock.
Try to be best, cause you're only a man, and a man's got to learn to take it. Try to believe, though the going gets rough, that you gotta hang tough to make it. History repeats itself, try and you succeed. Never doubt that you're the one, and you can have your dream. You're the best around, nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around, and nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around, nothing's gonna ever keep you down. Fight to the end, cause your life will depend on the strength that you have inside you. I gotta be proud, standing out in the crowd with the odds in the game defy you. Try your best to win them all, and one day time will tell. When you're the one that's standing there, you reach the final bell. You're the best around, nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around, nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around, nothing's gonna ever keep you down. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. Fight till you drop. You never stop. You can't give up until you reach the top. You're the best in town. Listen to that sound. A little bit of all you got to never bring you down. You're the best around. Nothing. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever bring you down. You're the best around. Nothing. Nothing. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best around. Nothing's gonna ever keep you down. You're the best.
All right, we're back, and now we're going to get into our best of first-time watches of 2017, and I guess we'll get to the honorable mentions first. So we'll just go through our list for honorable mentions. Do you have any, Daniel?
I don't really have any honorable mentions. I just kind of picked 10 movies that were, again, interesting things that would be worth kind of discussing again. So yeah, no, I don't have a ranked list. It's all just sort of like I just put them in alphabetical order. So
All right, cool. So I'll just go through my honorable mentions here. So the first one I'm going to mention is Cold Ground from 2017, directed by Fabienne Delage. This is a found footage film. It's very much in the vein of The Blair Witch. It's sort of what attracted me to it. It's actually very well done in that sort of sense. I mean, after Blair Witch, it's very hard to actually pull off a good found footage film and make it kind of work and make it logical and make it something that's entertaining. But Cold Ground does it. It's basically this group of assorted people. There's some scientists, a American detective, and a couple filmmakers filming this as they go up to a science station in the Alps to find out basically what's going on. Like, all these animals are dying in the area, and it's basically their trek up the mountain, and they start feeling like they're being hunted by something in the wilderness. And I'll leave it at that. I don't want to give away too many details in the film. There's one poster for the film that actually just totally gives away what's actually going on in the film, which it sucks. But this is actually really well done. They come up with a creative reason for them to keep the cameras on. It's basically set in, I believe, the 1970s, so the camera ends up malfunctioning in a way where the light stays on. So they need the light for the camera to light their way in the dark. And so they have to keep filming while they're doing that. It's really well done. Good tension in it. Very, very much Blair Witch-like. The actors are really good in this. Like, they're way better than the actors in Blair Witch Project, actually. I found them all interesting and believable. And I like that the American detective is kind of a conspiracy theorist. He's like a proto-Fox Mulder. He has all these theories about, like, cattle mutilations and stuff that were going on during that period. And so he's trying to take his theories and sort of transpose them on what's going on here in France or whatever. Usually, found footage films don't impress me all that much, but this one actually did a really good job of keeping true to the formula and making it work. So there you go. Next one, this is Never Hike Alone from 2017, and this is a fan film. This is a Friday the 13th fan film, actually. And this is a fan film that's actually better than, I would say, 70% of the sequels to Friday the 13th. These are people making this film. The director is Vincente Di Sante, and he's obviously a big fucking fan of Friday the 13th, and he actually wants to, ground the series and take it to a more serious direction. It's basically about this hiker filming himself hiking through the area where Camp Crystal Lake is, and he encounters Jason Voorhees and the results of that. And there's a sort of a fan service moment in this near the end of the film where they bring back one of the protagonists from the Friday the 13th films. It's just a really good fan film. It's not a great film or anything like that.
Is it like just an amateur kind of thing that was just made by somebody, or was this an actual got a release sort of real movie?
It's been I think it has a release at least coming, but I mean it's been all over social media, okay. VOD or whatever, and it's kind of professionally done. Like it doesn't look like some shitty.
I mean, I guess like you say, it's got Jason Voorhees in it. Like, does it have Jason Voorhees, or is it like Schmason Schwarhees? Right?
No. No, it's Jason Voorhees. Like
okay.
The actors in it are good. The way they present Jason is really well done. It does fit within sort of the crappy continuity of the actual film series, but
sure.
But I mean, it's one of the best sort of fan films I've ever seen for any sort of franchise that's ever been done. So I just wanted to give it a shout out because it's worth checking out.
Never Hike Alone sounds like the the porn companion to Fake Taxi to me. Never hike alone. Bring a buddy. I don't know. Like it's I don't know. That's that joke was for free. It's fine.
Yeah. Although, I mean, honestly, if it's Jason Voorhees, even if you bring a couple friends, it's probably not going to work out too well for you. But
you might end up impaled in more ways than one in that circumstance.
Yeah. Next one I'm going to mention is Who'll Stop the Rain from 1978, directed by Carl Reese. This is a early Nick Nolte film. Michael Moriarty's in it as well. Nick Nolte plays a friend of Michael Moriarty who's an embedded journalist in Vietnam. Nick Nolte was a soldier in Vietnam. Michael Moriarty entrusts him a block of heroin to bring back to the U.S. to sell. Basically, it's Nick Nolte running from corrupt DEA agents who seek to steal this block of heroin for themselves and sell themselves.
You had me at Nick Nolte and Michael Moriarty and Vietnam, and now heroin. I'm like, yeah, put this on a list. Done.
Yeah. No, this is a real fun film. Of course, it's got that Vietnam tinge to it, how Vietnam corrupted and killed a whole generation of people, and how it kind of the dirt of Vietnam came back to sour America.
It's very 1978 is what you're telling me.
Yeah, it very much is, and it's really good. Nick Nolte actually looks young in this film, which is just surprising on its own, and I really enjoy it. And it's the fucking title is Who'll Stop the Rain, so you know there's a CCR soundtrack through this entire fucking thing, which is really good. It was a lot of fun. Next one I'll mention is Arrival from 2016 from Denis Villeneuve. And have you seen this one, Arrival?
I have not. I really want to. That's the Amy Adams.
Yes.
No, I have heard really nice things about it. I have not.
Yes.
I think it's streaming on Amazon Prime, so it might be a soon watch for me. But
it's on Canadian.
That kind of hard sci-fi. It's about communication and
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Canadian Netflix at the very least. Great fucking film. Like you said, hard sci-fi, excellent performances. I just love the way this film plays out. There's a very interesting twist at the end of this, and the movie plays with sort of. I guess the best way to say it is like the reality of the aliens compared to our reality, how we perceive reality. They perceive it in a different way, where time necessarily isn't as static as it is for us. It's much more fluid. So there's this interesting kind of sort of reveal at the end of the film. It's kind of tragic and it's kind of beautiful at the same time, and it truly is a great sci-fi film. It's one of the real classics of the modern era as far as I'm concerned. So
it's on my short list. Just haven't sat down in front of it yet, but
yeah. Next one, and man, this is a long fucking honorable mentions list. I apologize to anyone listening, but Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, James Gunn. Just pure enjoyment. I enjoy the fuck out of this film.
Did you like the first one?
I love the first one, and I like this one better because everyone's established now. So it's just like everyone's established. We can just do adventures because you know all the characters, right? And Kurt Russell is a way better villain than that piece of shit villain they had in the first one. Kurt Russell's actually interesting in this film.
I really like the first hour of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I think like once you sort of get into the sort of the narrative of who Kurt Russell is and the sort of relationships that entails, things start to lose steam. And then what I was looking forward to in this film was felt like we weren't going to get the 45-minute special effects laden action sequence at the end, and it wasn't going to be like, bunch of lights flying around and doing nothing. But we did actually get that. And then I feel like the film kind of loses. So I feel like the film is sort of like the first half is actually really interesting and good. And there's some sort of really interesting stuff and a lot of fun stuff being played with in it. But then like the main narrative just kind of loses me after a certain point.
Yeah, I can see that. And
but particularly the first 30 minutes, I think is really, just phenomenal entertainment. You get basically the family struggle aspect of like the first half of the film, right? And it feels like it resolves itself a little too easily in the last of the film. I almost felt like this film was going this direction where here's the first 5 minutes where we're going to give you the CGI fucking special effects fest, and then we're gonna have this family drama for the rest of the film. No, we're gonna bookend it with some more CGI bullshit. But I love the eugenicists, like gold aliens, who are like have sticks up their asses, and I love the arcade version. Like I love a lot of the visual design. I love the fun of the beginning of the film. I love Rocket Raccoon in this movie. I love the sequence where basically the entire like army comes after him and he's just like laughing at them, beating them effortlessly, which is a lot of fun.
And I
love Yondo. I love Michael Rooker and everything, but I do love him in this film.
I appreciate that Baby Groot is not overused. It's like he's just cute enough. He's just cute enough.
Right. Yeah. And, there's a lot of stuff. Again, like this is another one of those. There's a lot of stuff I like in the film that works, but I don't know. Like overall, I don't know that it hangs together like as a narrative for me. But I watched it once. I did. It is on Netflix, so I did kind of again rewatch that first like 45 minutes or so, and then just like went to bed and turned it off. Like,
yeah,
this is the stuff I loved about the film was all in that first like half or so. But
yeah, I get that. Next one, White Heat from 1949, Raoul Walsh. I mean, first time watch for me this year. It was great to do it for the podcast. You, me, and Kit talking about that, and I don't think I would call it a great movie, but it's a really goddamn good one. And I mean, you can't get past that fucking performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's Cagney. You can't, like, it's like the Cagney performance in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I mean, he's unfairly lumped on being like just over the top all the time, and he's not that over the top in this performance. He's pretty goddamn solid. He just has big moments here and there in this performance. And
and the sort of childishness of him, like the way that works. And this is really early on in the sort of the gangster film, but you can see like sort of the characters in Goodfellas are sort of all playing off the same sort
very,
of idea.
very Joe Pesci.
Yeah. Well, I think about like one of my favorite moments in Goodfellas is the when Robert De Niro finds out that Joe Pesci has been killed, has been whacked. Sorry, spoiling a nearly 30-year-old movie, but
whoa.
And then he has that moment where like he's hanging up the payphone, and he smashes the handle into the earpiece, the receiver, into the phone like a bunch of times, and there's this like quick zoom in or like a dolly in that Scorsese does. It's one of those like great moments, because it just like the inner like rage, but also with this like childish tantrum that he's going at this point. And I think that's a great like performance moment from De Niro, and you could definitely see kind of Cagney doing something similar from that. And then of course that feeds into like Tony Soprano and all the other like it's all this kind of unbroken like kind of build. And White Heat's one of the earliest examples of that. Probably Scarface would be the original Scarface would be.
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah. Next we're going to mention is the Autopsy of Jane Doe from 2016 by Andre Overdahl. This is an interesting horror film. It's got Brian Cox in it. It's basically Brian Cox is the senior figure in this family-owned mortuary business, and this Jane Doe comes into their morgue, and him and his son start doing an autopsy on her and find a lot of incredibly disturbing, unnatural qualities about her body, and what results from that, basically. It falls apart a little bit in the end, but it's actually a very interesting horror film. It's got a lot of really good tension built into it. I don't want to give too much away in case someone wants to actually watch it. But I was really entranced by it. It was one of the better. This is one of those ones where I'd heard a lot of great things about it, and I was like, maybe I'll see it, maybe I won't. And then I took a chance on it, and it was really goddamn good. And also the actress who plays Jane Doe does a great performance here, because she's basically playing a dead body for most of the movie, and also a nude dead body for most of the movie. And it's like that takes a lot of fucking guts.
That's the best kind, really. If you're gonna, you're gonna get a dead body. I mean, come on, like
Did Paul jump into this chat?
Sorry, I was trying to give a little bit of the Paul,
Yeah. Shit.
Just be glad I didn't make a Logan Paul joke at that moment.
Oh fuck. Oh my god, guys! It's a dead body. Whoa.
That's a Stand By Me. Could have gone that way too, but
Oh, Logan Paul and Stand By Me. That would have been something. I would have hoped River Phoenix would have just kicked the shit out of him at that point. Hey.
I want River Phoenix to go little Nikita on Logan Paul in that. Look it up, kids. That's an obscure reference even for this podcast.
Yeah. And the last one I'm going to mention for honorable mentions is The Ballad of Lefty Brown from 2017. I already talked about it on the podcast. Basically, the idea is Bill Pullman is that sidekick, the Walter Brennan sidekick from all those John Wayne westerns. Basically the oh, there's old Squeaky, there's old Cranky, you know, we'll bring him along, and he's always complaining, going, well, geez, gosh, I can't figure on that. Yeah, and basically he's that guy, and this is his adventure. This is basically examines what that character would do if the hero died early on in the film. And
no, that's definitely. I just wrote it down to remind myself to check it out soon, because I'm definitely down for that.
It's great. It's I mean, I think we've talked about how underrated Bill Pullman is on this podcast, and this is one of his greatest performances, if not his greatest, because not only does he sort of capture one of those characters from those films, he does it with a real nuance and a respect that makes it believable. So there's no campiness or anything like that you would get from some of those John Wayne films with those sort of characters in it. You can believe this guy. And I just thought it was exceptional, and it was worth sort of pointing out for the year. Something to watch.
Yeah, definitely.
Now we can get to our top 10 list here. How do you want to do this, Daniel? Do you want to just you say your first one, and I'll go to mine?
Let's alternate and just kind of talk through them here. I think hopefully at least some of them we've both seen, especially if they're ones that we covered for the podcast. So
okay, so I mean, I know you didn't necessarily list them 1 to 10, but
no, I didn't do 1 to 10. I like doing an alphabetical order list. Ranking is fun for nerds, and I'm a nerd. But,
yes.
That isn't the point. The point is to kind of create conversation. So,
right. So I'll let you get through your first one.
These are films that kind of came back to me as I was going through the list, and stuff that I thought was interesting, and stuff that I wanted to kind of mention stuff about a little bit more than sort of a best of. Because again, I just didn't see that much stuff. I'd love to have a list 10 times this long to cull through, like I did in 2016, and really have to pick and choose. So this is alphabetical order. The first one I wanted to mention was Drive. This is from 2011, the Ryan Gosling film. This is a film that stuck with me more than I thought it would, and partly that's because I think the process of making this podcast, a lot of times we kind of watch something. I make notes or whatever. I kind of get and then we kind of talk about it. We drink, and then it kind of moves on, and then it's very easy to just kind of let this stuff kind of flow through you and not really think about it all that much. One of the things that I didn't realize when I saw the film. And this, kind of the thing I've been working on as I've been, kind of studying neo-Nazis and through their propaganda. And neo-Nazis fucking love this film.
Do they?
They do. There's a neo-Nazi, there's an alt-right movie podcast that did a 3.5 hour dissection of how great this film is.
Holy shit.
See, once I learned that, I went, holy shit, of course. Because it's all about this white guy who's being... they're basically Jewish men manipulating him. All the his boss is Jewish, the gangsters are Jewish, right? And then there's a pretty girl who gets shot in the face by vaguely ethnic gangsters, and there's this guy who got out of prison. I mean, it's all once you view it through that lens, it's this terribly racially coded film. Also, all this 80s Tangerine Dream stuff, they all love this kind of fucking music, right? I mean, this is right up in their aesthetic. Once I found that out, I kind of threw up in my mouth a little bit. It's sort of not because we have to dislike the film because they like it, but just on the how did I should have caught that, right? But I still think the film is really interesting, and I think the film is, but definitely kind of keep that in mind. It's easy to miss these kinds of.
I can definitely see how idiots on the alt-right and the neo-Nazi movement can misinterpret and fucking sort of reconfigure that movie to fit their own purposes. Definitely. I can definitely see that. Fuck, yeah.
Well, we will not be linking to that podcast episode in the show notes, by the way.
No, we definitely won't, because fuck those guys.
Yeah. If you want to private message me, I will give you the file. That way you don't have to give them a download. So you can private message me, and I will get it, and I will give you the file because I have it all stored on my hard drive. But
again, fuck those people. They don't deserve downloads. Fuck them.
They don't. I feel kind of ashamed that I downloaded it. So
Okay.
I do think the film is actually really quite good. Everything that we said about the film is worthwhile. And again, it's one I really want to see what else Nicholas Winding Refn is going to do with his career. Again, one of the reasons I brought it up was just to point that out as something that we just completely missed that element of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obvious that we might miss it because we're not looking at these things through that lens.
Yeah, we're not actually trying to find something that supports our agenda.
right, exactly. So
yeah. Okay, so my number 10, I'll go The Last Detail from 1973, directed by Hal Ashby, and this is Jack Nicholson, Otis Young, Randy Quaid. This is an excellent film about nothing, really, because nothing really happens in the film necessarily. It's basically just Jack Nicholson, Otis Young are, I guess, Navy shoremen or something along those lines who are escorting Randy Quaid to prison. Because he stole a little bit from a charity box, and it happened to be the commanding officer's wife's favorite charity or whatever that she did. So he's getting the extra slap on the wrist for doing that shit. So he's going to be in prison for 8 years.
Yeah.
So they kind of and so they get a week to take him to prison, and basically it's like their first thought is, well, shit. We got a week to take this guy to prison. We can, let loose a little and have a little fun. But they start to like Randy Quaid's character. They start to get along with him and sympathize with him and like him. So they're like, well, shit, we got to give this kid a good time on the town before he fucking goes to prison. Because he's only like 20 or something like that. So it's like,
I mean, in 73, Randy Quaid was like 9 years old or something. Right?
Yeah. So let's let this motherfucker live a bit.
He wasn't like shitters full. It was like diapers full.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just this really fun movie of these guys. I mean, there's some serious dramatic stuff here as well, but it's mostly just these guys bonding together and basically raising hell as they sort of escort him to his prison sentence. And
The Last Detail, you say? That's the title?
Yeah. And Jack Nicholson is at his fucking cynical, nihilistic best here as just this really abrasive asshole who doesn't take shit from anybody. I mean, there's this scene in a bar where they're trying to get Randy Quaid a drink and he's underage, and he just gives the bartender so much fucking shit when he tries to, basically, I can't sell this guy any beer. He's like, fuck you, and it's like just this great speech. It's just fun. It's just this really good character study about these three men bonding together, and Otis Young is trying to mediate between the two guys because he doesn't really want to get in trouble or anything like that, so he's like trying to keep Jack Nicholson on the up and up. Let's not get this kid too much trouble, but let's have some fun at the same time. And yeah, like I said again, it's kind of a movie about nothing, but you just follow these guys and watch their journey, and great performances throughout the film. It was a lot of fun to discover this one.
I just wrote it down. So again, that early 70s, even more than the late 70s, but that sort of right before the blockbuster era. Mm-hmm. That era was such an amazing kind of moment for character studies and for
that's the thing. This is all character pieces in this film, basically.
And these were, this wouldn't have been considered like a big kind of budget blockbuster film.
No,
but like these were films sort of made for adults. Like the idea that adults would go and see a movie and just sort of be entertained. And it's also, I think the thing that happens today is that more and more of these stories come to television. And they become kind of long form ideas, and we do a little bit, and some of the like direct to video or the video on demand, and sort of the streaming markets sort of do some of the same thing now. So it's not like, this era was sort of lost for a while just because there was no market for this. But you gotta love this era, that era of a film. It reminds me of a film called Scarecrow, which is an Al Pacino film from around that same time period.
I've seen that, yeah.
I saw it like almost 20 years ago at this point, so I won't talk a lot about it, but talking about the performances and talking about the sort of the way that the film seems to be kind of shot and paced does kind of make me think of that. So we'll definitely check that out.
All right.
Adding more and more films to the master list here.
Yeah. So your next one.
My next one, number 2 on my alphabetical list, I Am Not Your Negro.
Okay, I've heard of that one.
Right before the Alamo closed. It was actually the last film I got to see at the Alamo. This is the documentary about James Baldwin. It was a little bit of a disappointment to me when I saw it in cinema. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason is that the film is it's quote unquote written by James Baldwin. It's actually sort of based on a book he was writing about the experience of 3 of the great civil rights leaders being murdered, in a very brief period. And the whole point, Baldwin never completed the work, and so the film kind of feels a little bit unfinished, and it's largely just sort of a long sequence of sort of Baldwin speaking. At its worst, it feels like a sort of random walk through like old YouTube clips of James Baldwin.
Yeah.
I don't know that I got anything more out of this film than I would get out of just sort of watching James Baldwin clips on YouTube for, an hour and 45 minutes. But that's still really fucking good, right? James Baldwin was a gay man, a queer man in the 60s. Everybody kind of knows MLK and everybody knows Malcolm X, but James Baldwin exists as a sort of counterpoint to both in a lot of ways, and is a kind of underappreciated thinker. He was a great writer. I think this film is worth seeing, even though it kind of feels like maybe I went into it with like super high expectations. Right. I think it's a film I'm looking forward to revisiting, and I think it really was just kind of my expectations that maybe led me to think this was going to be maybe more than it ends up being. But particularly again, if we're thinking about like, it seems like we're reliving the 60s a little bit. We're kind of in that same kind of like powder keg, and I think Baldwin's big chunks of this film are also Baldwin talking about old movies that he grew up watching.
Oh, really?
And sort of like, so and then they would show, so basically like a written essay that he read out, right? And then they'll kind of show the clips from the movie that he's talking about, and you can kind of see what he's kind of referring to when he's talking about these sort of racial caricatures and this sort of, there is a very strong kind of visual and kind of cinematic element to it. I'm being a little bit unfair to it, saying like it feels like a string of YouTube videos, but
well, I mean, you put it on your top list, so I mean,
it's again incredibly interesting and incredibly important sort of subject matter, and a film that I think I want to revisit myself and maybe give another crack, as a kind of knowing what it is a little bit more concretely now. But Baldwin himself was absolutely worth your time as well. So check it out. I Am Not Your Negro, and I think I'm sure it's on like Amazon.
I think that's on Netflix. Pretty sure it is.
Yeah, it may very well be. So.
Yeah. Canadian Netflix, at least.
Yeah, well,
we have all the movies on Canadian Netflix.
Canadian Netflix, where the beer costs $25, but everything is streaming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So my number 9, Night in the City, 1950, from Jules Dassin.
Oh yeah,
what a fucking amazing movie to find in 2017, and I love it. Richard Widmark, I mean, already a perennial favorite of mine, and I think this is his best performance. I think this is where he fucking shines the most, as this just shitbag character who cannot win, and he meets a really nasty, simple, quick end at the end of this film, and I just love his struggle to try to survive through this entire film. Again, of course, I'm a little bit biased. The professional wrestling angle to this kind of appeals to me quite a bit, just to see like these classic professional wrestlers back from a time where, even back then when this movie was made, a lot of people just didn't know it wasn't real, so I do love that, and it's just a great noir film at the same time. It's just really fucking well done, and don't have much more to say about it other than check out our coverage of that.
Yeah, we covered that one. I saw this one in 2016. I don't remember if it made my list in 2016. If it didn't, it was right up there.
Yeah,
I mean, it would have made my honorable mention if it didn't make my actual list. Phenomenal film. I mean, greatest Widmark performance. I mean, that's a tough judgment call. But,
and I've seen a lot of I've seen a lot of his stuff, and this one kind of sticks with me quite a bit. So.
Yeah, no, it's very. I mean, I think we think of Woodmark, and we think a little bit more of the sort of like the caricature from what is it, Kiss of Death,
right?
You know, the sort of the larger than life. But this is a very, it's a very human performance. It's very small. It's kind of a pathetic performance. And,
it is. He's very pathetic,
in the best possible way. You know,
yeah.
So, yeah. No, Kiss of Death is brilliant, and yeah, it would. I mean, it would definitely be on my list this year if I hadn't already seen it, obviously.
Yeah. All right, your next one.
I'm gonna go with Kitten with a Whip.
Oh, okay, yeah, nice.
Yeah, no, I'm going for, and this is like a pure, this. How can you not? I'm the sucker for a good title. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And, I saw a Kitten with a Whip in Anna Margaret, and I'm like, well, yeah, we have to cover that. I kind of love this film. It's sort of a B-rate touch of evil for me. Like, I just sort of love, and I know that sounds like stupid when I put it that way. Like it's so not that film, but I sort of love the Mexican element of it. I love the sort of the over the border. I love the sort of noirish elements. I fucking love Anne Margaret. I love the swinger beatnik gang.
Yeah.
It's just such a fun little stupid movie. And it was one of the most fun things that I found and got to see and talk about on this podcast this year. So I put it on my list. Again, this is an alphabetical list. It's not like this is the third best film I saw this year, but
yeah.
I really enjoyed it. And I wanted to put an Anne Margaret film on here. I could have gone with Rebus. Rebus was a lot of fun, but Rebus was a little bit more generic for me. Like Kitten with a Whip kind of I think about that film and it just brings a smile to my face, honestly. It's such a little joyous film for me. And
yeah.
So
you know what? I was thinking about that film and what it feels like to me, the more I think about it, and I actually rewatched it this year as well, one time. It feels like a proto Russ Meyer film. Before you can show all the nudity and sex, basically, is what it is. Because the dialogue is the cheesy, sort of overblown version of that sort of noir dialogue kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That Russ Meyer just reveled in, he just bathed in that shit. And all these characters are basically just saying Russ Meyer lines, but they can't get naked because of the time period, right? So when I look at that film now, I appreciate it a lot more. It's just this is just 3 steps away from Anne Margaret getting naked and banging some dude on a bed.
Well, not that I would complain if that was in the film as well, but no, it's just a sort of delightful little. I mean, again, don't think too hard about it. Just watch this film, enjoy it. I think there's it really is worth 90 minutes of your time.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
I agree. Yeah, it is a fun film. My next one I'm going to mention is Under the Shadow from 2016 by Avin Manshadi. This is an Iranian film. It's set during the 1980s in Iran. The war between the cities, I believe it was called. It was a conflict in Iran, at least at that time. And this is about a mother and daughter. Her husband has been drafted, so he's off on the battlefield somewhere. So she's kind of estranged from him. And she's living in this apartment building with all these assorted people in the apartment. So you have a little bit of character moments between these people and stuff like that. But essentially it is the horror slowly creeps in where she begins to believe that a jinn is trying to influence her daughter and take her daughter away. And at one point, a unexploded rocket lands into the apartment building, and that seems to be the herald of the jinn basically coming into their lives. And it's so fucking well done. The suspense that is built in this film, you get a sense of culturally what it's like to be a woman in Iran in that period. And honestly, it's probably fairly the same now.
What's the title again? I'm sorry.
It's Under the Shadow, 2016.
You make me think it should be a companion piece to Persepolis.
I don't know that.
Marianne Satrapi. It's the animated film that's actually, I've only read the graphic novel it was based on, but it's an animated film that's set during the Iranian Revolution, during '79, when the Ayatollahs took over, and
this is like after the revolution, and there's like a war between, like she was like a liberal during that time during the revolution, and now she's kind of ostracized by certain people in the community, you know, because she, oh well, you used to be a revolutionary, you should just
let's put this on the to watch immediately list. This is something I really want to check out.
Cool. And it's very much, I mean, it makes a really big statement about a woman's place in the society, because the way the jinn is manifested in this film is as a incredibly large, all-encompassing burqa. So I mean, it's a little on the nose. It's a little on the nose, but it's also great.
Yeah, no, I'm down. I legitimately mean let's cover this film in the next.
Okay. Well, I'll shut up about it then. I'll stop there.
No,
but
that's kind of what I mean. Is let's talk about it later when I get to watch it.
Okay, so your next film.
Sure. The Lego Batman movie.
Oh, really? I've heard good things about this. Yeah.
Oh, this might be the single greatest Batman movie, honestly. Legitimate. I'm not a giant Batman fan, The first the Lego movie was this sort of goofy, fun metaphor for kind of children's play. Right. I don't know. Did you see the first one?
No.
Okay. They're both worth watching. I mean, the first one kind of kind of get this generic, kind of hero's role kind of plot, and then it sort of goes off the rails and does something really interesting in the final third. And since you haven't seen it, I'm not gonna talk too much about it. But they kind of brought Batman in, and Batman is voiced by Will Arnett, and they bring him in as this sort of he's a Will Arnett character, right? He's this blowhard, I'm going to save the world and, do all this thing, and I'm badass and I'm the best, and I only work in black, kid,
black.
The great thing about the Lego Batman movie is that it references literally every era of the Batman continuity on film and on television, including the 40s Batman serials.
Oh, really?
All the way right up to The Dark Knight Returns. It references, at least in sort of a jokey way, all over the place. It's got numerous sort of Adam West references.
Nice.
But it's not just a reference movie. It's this sort of legitimately interesting look at sort of who Batman would be. I mean, and Batman's relationship to Superman, who is also in the film. Again, it's kind of a fun movie, but it's a lot more interesting than maybe you might give it credit for, just if you weren't sort of thinking out loud. I mean, the thing with this one is it kind of runs into again, in the final third, it kind of has to do the kids movie. We're going to do the plot, and we're going to give you, we're going to hammer home the you need friends kind of, narrative, the plot, the sort of the moral of the thing. And, but that's fine ultimately. I mean, it sort of works in the moment, even though it kind of drags just a little bit for sort of an adult audience. I'm kind of I kind of get where you're going here. Let's cut 5 minutes out of this movie here. Right. This sounds silly, but it's probably my all-time favorite Batman movie. This one or Batman Returns. It's one of those two.
Well, I've heard a lot of people say a lot of great things about this film, so I'm not that surprised that you would say it's your favorite Batman movie. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's oh, and of course the 66, the original Adam West Batman, I think it's time, now that Adam West isn't with us anymore, it's time to revisit the Adam West era, And Batman is a fascinating character on screen. I mean, I actually don't like Batman as a character. I think he's basically
well, he's
a rich kid with daddy issues. That's kind of, I mean,
that, and he's a psychopath,
right? And he's a psychopath. I mean, but the way that different creators have interpreted that is more interesting than sort of the character himself.
Yeah, I mean, he is basically a cipher for people to basically step in and interpret, right? But yeah. Okay.
So Lego Batman.
Awesome. Next we're going to mention is Gerald's Game from 2017 by Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan's one of my new favorite horror directors. He did Hush, which was on my list last year. This is a great adaptation of Stephen King from a year where Stephen King has had sort of a renaissance as far as adaptations of his work. Maybe not The Dark Tower, but It.
Yeah, I heard that was terrible. I heard that.
Yeah. But this and It in 1922 apparently are all really great. Gerald's Game, this is a great adaptation. It also doesn't shy away from the fact that Gerald's Game was connected to the Dolores Claiborne novel as well, where there was both of these events happened at the same time, basically, where there was like this eclipse or whatever. So it pays tribute to that. It falls apart a little bit at the end, but it's great. It's got this great, just basically these great performances in this film. The guy who plays the moon-faced killer in this film, who shows up while this poor woman finds herself basically tied to her bed after her husband decides to engage in more aggressive sexual play than she had planned for. And he has a heart attack, so she's basically stranded in the bed, tied into the bed. It's an interesting sort of discussion about her life and what she thought about her husband and what she actually knew about her husband and didn't know about her husband. She starts to, hallucinate things. She sees like visions of her husband criticizing her for her decisions and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on in this film. It's really well done. And I thought it was a really good adaptation and addition to Netflix. You can see it on Netflix now. Netflix, it's an excellent horror film. Really well done.
Number 5, Re-Animator.
Oh, cool.
This was way better than I really thought it was going to be, honestly. I mean, which is to say, I thought like, oh, this is going to be terrible, and I am talking about sort of the cleaned up director's cut version. Like that's the good version. But yeah, there's way more interesting stuff. Again, a lot of fun. It seems like I'm kind of going through my list, and like a lot of my list is like, oh yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of just sort of an enjoyable experience to sit and watch. Maybe that's the kind of year I had as a film viewer. Was I didn't really watch a lot of like the more serious in-depth stuff. But Re-Animator definitely was one of those, like kind of looking back on my year on They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. Like that was definitely one of those, like, oh yeah, this is one that stuck with me, that was like a really enjoyable watch and really enjoyable conversation. And I kind of don't have anything else to say about it except like go back and listen to our episode. Like I think we kind of hit that one, and I kind of said everything I needed to say there. But if you missed that one, like if you haven't seen that, I kind of feel embarrassed being in this podcast and not being a huge horror guy. But like I'm always like I want to see the good stuff, but I don't care enough to
but I mean that's part of what makes this podcast so fun, though, is that you get to experience stuff that you've never seen before, and we get to react to it, because Paul and I are both big time kind of horror nerds. So I mean, it's definitely fun for us to see you.
There's another film on this list that you will also appreciate me having on this list. And we'll just,
But we do get a lot of enjoyment of like seeing, oh shit, Daniel really liked this one. It was like, and the reasons why you like this one are real fun. Like that. That's the best thing.
Re-Animator. I mean, Re-Animator always like I was kind of like, oh, it's just gonna kind of be like a special effects kind of gore fest, which I'm fine with. Yeah. But it's got a real witty beating heart to it. It's got some real character bits. Like it doesn't, more so than like The Beyond, or is it From Beyond?
From Beyond, yeah.
From Beyond, yeah.
Which is more of a
From
show,
Beyond, which is a little bit more of a. It's sort of playing with. It's trying to be a little bit more serious.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas Re-Animator is just kind of like, let's just go out and do the thing and like stab people in the face. Like it's great.
Jeffrey Combs is going to go over the top. It's great. Let's do it. Yeah. Okay, so my next one, 3:10 to Yuma from 1957. Delmer Davies. Nothing much more to say about this. I mean, listen to the podcast.
We just covered it, but
yeah.
A great film.
But I mean, fucking great. I was pleased to be able to cover it on the podcast, and I'm glad you suggested it. So absolutely. I'll leave it at that.
6, Revolver.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
This was my. I went through all the Policioteskis and went like, which one really? I mean, not that I would have been happy to have multiple, but it was which one was the one that really hit me the most, and I think Revolver is definitely that one. It was almost the Police Serve the Citizens, which was
right.
Another kind of interesting one but didn't quite kind of get there thematically and structurally.
That one's a bit slower, yeah.
But Revolver, I mean, a pair of great performances from Fabio Testi and from Oliver Reed.
Yeah,
really interesting crime film plot that then kind of becomes this like really fascinating political thing in this very dark elemental kind of narrative in the last like 10-15 minutes. Again, like one of those I mean, it's hard to say like, it's this low budget Italian crime film from 1973. Go watch it. For people who are not, it's tough to kind of sell people on that era of cinema that, they're dubbed or, there's they don't look like a modern film, and it just kind of what the fuck are you showing me right now? But I think legitimately a great film in its own way.
I totally agree. I mean, if people have never seen it or listened to this podcast, if you want to get some sort of insight into Italian culture at that time, like what they were sort of responding to and what was going on in Italian society, the Policioteskis actually do a good job of sort of highlighting like the big points of that. You're not going to get nuance necessarily. Like I mean, if you want the real details, then just get the history books and start looking into that shit. But if you want to see a really honest response from Italian cinema about where Italian culture was at that point, the Policioteskis do an amazing job of just showing you the corruption and the fallout from World War II and where Italian society kind of was at that point. Like there's a lot of really poignant kind of things going on in these films.
The thing with films of this type is that they're kind of low budget. They're made quickly. They're made, and they're made for sort of a paying audience. Because of all those factors, they're allowed to be a little, or at least today we can look back on them and kind of see they're responding to something in the culture. It feels like this very authentic response to something that's actually happening. And through this funhouse mirror, because like nobody thinks that like this is like a realistic portrait of what police culture was in 1973 in Italy. But at the same time, there's something, it's responding to that, and it's trying to get at something that, like, if a more considered film, a more sort of polished, Oscar-worthy film or whatever, would not touch on these issues in the same way. And I mean, this is the same thing. It's funny, like this is the same thing that the Last Detail, is made in the same year. And we think about just the way the performances were and the way that the way that films were shot in this era. We're pre-blockbuster. We're like Spielberg comes and changes the world, right?
Yeah. And also, I mean, I'll say the Policioteschi stuff. I mean, yes, they are exploitation films. So I mean, they're tapping into the pulse of the culture and heightening it, and you're getting a lot of gunplay, you're getting a lot of sex and violence and stuff like that at the same time. But they still do sort of open your eyes to a lot of the things that were going on, like a lot of the corruption and shit that was going on in Italian society at the time. Like you can't get away from it.
And the greatest use of yellow socks in cinema history. So.
Yeah. Okay. My next one, my number 5, is going to be Hard Times from 1975, directed by Walter Hill. Mm-hmm. This is the Charles Bronson, James Colburn film. Charles Bronson is basically this drifter who runs into James Colburn in Louisiana. Starts doing basically illegal fight club stuff, basically, like bare knuckle fights. And James Coburn basically exploits him and tries to use him to pay off all of his debts to the local sort of mob in Louisiana. And it's just a great film about these two guys learning to trust each other and whether they're going to bail each other out at the appropriate times. And It's a great Charles Bronson performance. I mean, it's funny to think about how Charles Bronson sort of came into his own, like in his late 40s, early 50s, where he really became the action hero and the tough guy. Like, Jesus Christ, this guy. And he was so fit. Like, in this film, he's a bare knuckle boxer. You see him shirtless several times, and you go, Jesus Christ, if I could look like that when I'm in my 50s.
There's hope for all of us, right? You know.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just a bunch of great performances. Strother Martin is Poe in this film. He's the heroin addicted cut doctor for Charles Bronson as he does these fights. And the funny thing is, Charles Bronson never gets a fucking cut in any of these fights, so Strother Martin doesn't have to do shit. Other than basically pontificate about the situation poetically. And it's fucking amazing. He almost steals this entire film away from everybody, and it's a fucking great performance. This is a movie of great performances, and it's one of Walter Hill's best films, and I just fell in love with it watching it.
Well, we'll have to come back and do some more 70s crime films, and do this one, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so your next one, Daniel.
Sorcerer, 1977.
Ah, nice.
Yep.
I'm glad you put that on your list.
We covered it recently. I mean, go back and listen to the episode. This is one I'm sure. I know I had seen at least parts of beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'd ever actually seen it all the way through. One of the reasons I stuck it on my list is because I had some thoughts about it I wanted to run by you.
Okay.
I was thinking about like Friedkin's comments that you kind of see where he was kind of wanting this to be like a big star vehicle, right? You know, I'm trying to think like if you imagine this with Tom Cruise, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and William H. Macy, or the whole thing seems to be like we've got these sort of 4 preludes. It's kind of 4 little kind of pieces at the beginning that kind of demonstrate who these characters are. And then we're supposed to be just sort of follow along on the star power. But then he couldn't really get the stars for it. And so the film, like, I kind of get that Friedkin is kind of like, this isn't really the film I wanted to make. Because,
exactly,
like, in his mind, he wanted it to be The Expendables or something,
Yeah,
like he wanted it to be like that kind of thing.
There was only, like we said in the episode, there was only one guy that had one of the lead roles that he had originally cast for it. Everybody else was 3rd or 4th fucking picks. He was never happy with the fact that Roy Scheider was the lead. Although they were friends and they worked together several times, he was not happy with the fact that he was the lead in this film.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking about like if the film were like if it did have the sort of the big recognizable stars, the structure of it would feel maybe a little bit less, I don't know. Well, alienating is the film I'm using, is the sort of the term I'm using. It isn't really alienating. It's just sort of like, it's clear we're supposed to kind of just be involved in these kind of characters' lives from the beginning. And it works on the film level. Like it works on a sort of, you kind of watch the film and sort of you get involved. But I think the point we're supposed to get is you see Tom Cruise and he's kind of doing the Mission Impossible thing, right? Yeah. And then like, oh, he has to leave that, and then he becomes the guy in South America, and then you see, William H. Macy, and he's like this like shitty like, embezzling somewhere, and you see him in like in the Fargo role, and then suddenly like, oh no, now I got to get out of here, and then you see him in South America. Like I think that's kind of where we're supposed to go, like sort of like, as an audience with the film,
I mean, he wanted Steve McQueen as the lead of this,
right?
And I mean, if you had Steve McQueen, and actually the fact that Steve McQueen did not sign up for this because Steve McQueen wanted his, I think it was at the time either girlfriend or wife a part in this, and Walter Hill's like, no, that can't happen. So Steve McQueen's like, well, fuck this, I'm gone. Apparently, several other people, their participation on this hinged on Steve McQueen getting a role. Yeah. So if this was Steve McQueen and a lot of better known actors, definitely it probably would have drew a lot more people to the theater than it did. I mean, this was still going up against Star Wars. I mean,
well, right, and you're never going to go up against Star Wars and do all that well.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess for me, it's just sort of like that puts it in perspective as to sort of like where Friedkin's coming from making the film.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is sort of I'm not saying remake it. Obviously, I'm just saying like if we're going to sort of visualize what Friedkin wanted me to be thinking when I'm sitting down in front of this film.
Mm-hmm. But
You know,
I
as
mean,
this sort of like examination of genre in a way, or sort of plucking these characters out of genre and then putting them into, you know, this other thing.
Although, I mean, I can speak as just like a virgin viewer of this, not knowing the history behind it. The first time I watched this film, I just fucking fell in love with it. Like, I was like, oh my God, these performances, these actors, I want to know who the fuck they are. Like, I know Roy Schreider. I saw fucking Joe Spinell in a bit part in this, and I was like, oh my God, this movie's amazing. Why the fuck had I not heard of this movie before? I watched it and I just fell in love with it. And I can't imagine what this movie would be like if it was like Steve McQueen and a bunch of better known actors.
I mean, ironically, I think it's a better film not having that, right? You know,
because they don't overshadow anything.
You don't need that for this film, right? But you know, it does kind of like put it in perspective as to sort of like, in a way, the process of making the film. You know, the technical limitations, the budget limitations, actually made the film better than I think Friedkin kind of had this idea in his head about it. So yeah, it's a phenomenal film. I really loved it, and I loved talking about it. Again, go check out our episode on it. I don't really have anything more to say about it, but it kind of struck me as I was really driving home and just thinking about Sorcerer and going like, I guess it's like he kind of thought he was making the Expendables. And then if they'd made the Expendables, but like couldn't get anybody but like, you know, people that were in like, you know, shitty
he really did get the Expendables.
Yeah.
Because he got a bunch of like third or fourth fucking actors. So yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. My next one, Cut and Run from 1985 from Ruggero Deodato, and this is a Italian exploitation film, late period Italian exploitation film. And I did this one for Gary Hill's Cinema Beef podcast, one of the films we did, and I love this. Ruggero Deodato is known for his cannibal films more than anything else. Here he's kind of more restrained in this. It's basically just a straight-up exploitation film. It's got Willie Ames in it, high into his drug abuse period, so apparently he was a very diva on the set. It's got Michael Berryman, who, if you don't know who that is, he's basically Pluto from the Hills Have Eyes films, the original ones. So he's the bald guy without any hair who looks kind of weird. That's him. But this is this great exploitation film about the survivor of the Jim Jones cult starting up a drug empire in South America, basically attacking the cartel's drug manufacturing plants and taking them over, and this American sort of film crew going down and investigating. It's just like lots of violence and stupidity and makes no goddamn sense, but it's a great exploitation film. I absolutely fucking enjoyed every minute of this. I love it.
So I have a Willie Ames reference, like handy, if you'd like, because when I think Willie Ames at this point, I now think Zapped, right?
Yeah, because
we covered that, and it was such a it's a great moment in our podcast history. Go check out our Zapped episode. I think it's one of the best ones we've done. But we think of Willie Ames, and we know him from Who's the Boss and Zapped, and then now we know him as like conservative Christian douchebag Bible Man. You know, he's also the lead voice actor in the animated Dungeons and Dragons cartoon.
Is he?
A friend like brought the DVDs over, and we were sitting and watching it. And I'm like, hold on, Willie Ames is the voice of like the blonde shithead in the like. By the way, that cartoon better than it has any right to be an early '80s animated Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. You know, Gary Gygax had like intimate like involvement in that, and it shows in the best way. I really want somebody to kind of remake with that same kind of sensibility, because today we could do it a lot more justice. I'm not saying it's a good like cartoon series, but it's not shitty in the way that like you might think it was. You know, so much of that early '80s cartoon shit just terrible stuff. There's a real kind of wit and a kind of interest in like there's like it feels a lot like a bunch of people just sitting and playing D&D in a weird way. You know, But Willie Ames is like the lead voice, and Willie Ames, you got around in the early '80s. This was just a thing that happened, you know.
Yeah, I think he was drifting around for jobs for quite a while there. Like, I mean, he had the drug problem and shit, and I mean, he was notorious on this film shoot of basically being an asshole. But I mean, he's great in this. He's actually really good. Like, this is probably his best performance I've ever seen from Willie Ames.
Well, I mean, and when you're talking about an acting powerhouse like Willie Ames, like
I mean, you know, take that
speaks
volumes.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, this is a really enjoyable exploitation film. It's just Ruggero Deodato is known for his cannibal Holocaust kind of films.
Mm-hmm.
There are some moments in this that are as brutal as what you see in those films. Like, there's a bisection in this film that's just, it's cringeworthy. It's that good. There's some really good effects in this film, and it's just a balls to the wall fucking exploitation. Don't give a shit. We're gonna murder a bunch of people, show some tits, show some rape, you know, like all that stuff. Yeah. It's all in this.
Does Willie Ames rape someone in this film?
No, Willie Ames is the reluctant rich kid who's been kidnapped by these savages and is forced into sort of working with them and shit. But he decides he gets a chance to like machine gun a lot of motherfuckers. So there you go. Yeah. So we'll go to your next one, Daniel.
My next one, number 8, Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Nice.
Have you seen this?
I've seen it. I like it. Yeah.
I like this. I mean, I put it on my top 10. I mean, not that this is like I didn't see that much stuff. I really enjoyed this film. I actually bought it Black Friday weekend. You know, it was a blind buy, just because Shannon and I wanted to see it. My wife and I wanted to see it, and I think the streaming was $3.99 and the DVD or the Blu-ray was on sale for $7.99 or something. And I went, sure, let's spring for the Blu-ray. This is a really good movie. This is the best Spider-Man movie, I would say. It is. You know?
It is.
Tom Holland is really good. And Spider-Man 3 is a piece of shit, but I like the other Spider-Man movies. I like both of the Amazing Spider, the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man.
Never saw those ones, yeah.
I mean, they get a lot of shit, I think, unfairly. They're trying to go for this like kind of big overarching mythology of Spider-Man. They're sort of rewriting the Spider-Man mythos in ways that are kind of stupid. But I liked Andrew Garfield in them, and I liked the tone that they met. But this one is, I mean, Marvel just gets how to do this.
Marvel. Wait, you're saying Marvel knows how to write Spider-Man?
Right. Well, I haven't read a lot of comics. I'm not like a big comics guy, and I haven't really read Spider-Man comics, but I've read some of the Stan Lee comic strips from like back in the day, the kind of the big collected Amazing Spider-Man like omnibus volumes, and I used to read some of those. I just found them around, and I just sort of read them idly, and there's this sort of tone that they reach, and this film kind of hits that same tone in a very, it's light as a feather. The villain in this, Michael Keaton, is a great villain, but he's not like an overwhelming villain. You kind of get that like this is somebody that a 17-year-old kid could conceivably beat in the fight, you know?
Yeah.
There's a particular plot point that I like face palmed, you know, towards the end of the film involving the Michael Keaton character. Where there's a very convenient moment, you know.
Yeah, that's very. It's like, oh shit,
which you're either gonna be on board with it or not. And I think most people kind of go with it. It was kind of a like, oh, we're doing this now, like really.
Honestly, that's essentially the Green Goblin fucking plot.
Right,
I mean, to the extent that Spider-Man is friends with Harry Osborn and Norman Osborn ends up being the Green Goblin. That's essentially the kind of same idea there,
right?
But it's changed for a love interest instead. Yeah,
right. Well, the idea that it's sort of, I mean, it just sort of comes out of nowhere a little bit and just sort of becomes like
it is.
Oh, everybody knows each other in this world, right? You know, like you couldn't. Yeah, I don't know. Like it doesn't kill the film for me. Obviously, I still think it's really, really good.
No, it's minor.
But it was this kind of like moment where I'm just like, we're doing this. Like this is the level to which this film is.
Okay, let's move on. Let's forget this real quick.
But yeah, no, Spider-Man: Homecoming. If you haven't seen it, It's worth a watch. It is one of the most fun. Again, this list is a lot of fun movies, and this was kind of a blast for me. I mean, it doesn't ask a lot from the audience, but it doesn't insult the audience either. You know?
No, it's really good. I totally agree. I mean,
and fairly kind of. I mean, I don't want to say low budget, but fairly sort of low stakes. You know, again, it doesn't feel like.
It feels like a Spider-Man film because Spider-Man's supposed to be your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He's dealing with shit in his neighborhood. He's not saving the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And Marissa Tomei is
hot.
I mean, Marissa Tomei,
Aunt May is hot. Yeah, Tony Stark said as much. It's like, oh shit, your aunt's really hot. I'm going to flirt with her.
Well, the funny thing is that like the scenes, because I had watched Captain America: Civil War just before this, just before I watched this, and the scenes with Spider-Man and Tony Stark are just completely like, hey, look, we've got another better movie coming.
Yeah,
it's gonna,
exactly.
Like it's just crammed into Captain America: Civil War, which is. Like, there was some interesting stuff in that movie, but that was just a fucking mess, right? You know,
can't you wait for Tony Stark to tolerate Spider-Man while he flirts with his aunt? Can't you wait for that movie?
I want to see the like the romantic comedy between Tony Stark and Aunt May now. Like that's where Spider-Man isn't even. You just see him in the background, like occasionally spinning around and like taking out a bad guy, and the whole movie is just like one date. Where one long date night, like a before sunrise, where it's just Tony Stark and Aunt May, sitting and talking about like things. So I don't know. We've reached that point in the evening where I'm just spinning webs of plot for the It's worth checking out. If you were skeptical of this, of the 9-year-old Spider-Man, where a lot of people were like, seriously, like he's a fucking kid. He's great. Like he's really good.
It's fun, and I love that he has an accent too. I love that he's actually like you can pinpoint where he is in New York, and it's great. Like he feels authentic. My next one, Get Out, 2017, Jordan Peele, fucking great, fucking horror movie.
Still have not seen that movie, and I that's like so good. The one. That's the one that I was like, this would definitely be on my list if I had seen it.
It's so good. It's so fucking smart. It's so fucking funny.
I think we need to cover it. Honestly, I think that's the way to do it.
The best thing about it is it's this really tension building movie about manners. It calls out so many things, and a lot of the uncomfortableness and horror comes from just how fucking blunt it is about calling things out. This this cringeworthy idea, and I love that the villains in it are not your typical. Well, fuck these fucking N-words, fucking this and that. It's a bunch of fucking liberals who are they're appropriating culture.
They're rich white people.
Yeah, and they're appropriating black culture in a most disturbing way.
I have read a lot of think pieces on this. I know I will have much to say about this film.
I think you will, yes.
When we cover it,
But it's so smart, and it's an incredibly subversive film at the same time. And the ideas it puts forward are really good, and the performances are fucking on point. And it's just, I've seen it about 5 times now this year, and every time I just feel like pinpricks on my back, and I feel it's just the conversations just make me. Ugh.
Again, let's stick this on the let's do this in the next few months. Kind of.
Yeah. Well, we'll do that. But I mean, it is not overhyped. It is legitimately that great of a film. So your next one, Daniel.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Awesome.
My issue with us recording on this is that you and Paul had knew this film backwards and forwards and talked about everything, which is great. But I had really nothing to add,
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, that's nice. I kind of got done talking about it fairly early on, so I hope that didn't make the audience think I didn't have enthusiasm for the film, which I do have enthusiasm for the film. I think it's a dirty, grimy little kind of character study that turns into this horrific, horror film, you know,
Yeah.
a slasher movie, you know. A great movie, one of the greats of the genre, one of the greats of all time. And I just, you know, I saw it, I'm like, well, that has to go on my list. It just has to. That was pretty much the only one that was sort of a no-brainer for like, oh yeah, that regardless of anything, that deserves a spot on my list, you know. It's funny, like I don't really have anything else. It's kind of just obviously what it is. Like,
Yeah.
I can't imagine someone has listened to this podcast this long and has not seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But if you haven't,
Yeah.
go watch it. You know,
I'd kind of hope not, you know, fucking shit. But
you're next. Go ahead.
My next one is Brawl in Cell Block 99 from 2017. This is the Vince Vaughn film. This is directed by the guy who did Bone Tomahawk, which I believe I talked about last year.
You did Bone Tomahawk. I have had the MP4 on my computer, and I just have not hit play on that.
This is a true exploitation film. This is not a director pretending to do an exploitation film of the 1970s. This is straight up that sort of film. Vince Vaughn is, goddamn, I'd like to say, like, kind of revolutionary here in his performance. Like, just he's not the Vince Vaughn you know in this film.
Mean, let's be honest here, and this is you know, you tell me Brawl in Cell Block 99, starring Vince Vaughn, and I have this image in my head of a poster that's basically like Vince Vaughn with like the shaved head.
Yeah.
And looking goofy into a camera and going like, "I'm in prison now, wah wah," you know, like it's the sort of the comedy version where he's out talking the thugs in the prison, et cetera. But this does not sound like that. That is not the film.
That's not quite this film. Vince Vaughn looks basically like a younger, taller Bruce Willis in this film. Very, very much so, and way better actor, by the way. God damn, Vince Vaughn
should he have been cast in Once Upon a Time in Venice? That's really the question.
He would have done a way better job.
Yeah,
Vince Vaughn's great in this. It starts out as your standard sort of crime drama film, but although it's very much more grounded, very much base level kind of stuff, it's not overly stylistic or anything like that. Vince Vaughn's very no nonsense kind of character. He doesn't necessarily play by the rules of life. You know, he has his own sort of moral code and shit like that. And he ends up in prison, and the results of that are they just escalate. And it gets more and more brutal as it goes on. And it's a great exploitation film. It's a great film, period. The violence gets to the point where it's almost over the top in the sense of Inglourious Bastards. Thinking specifically Hitler being machine gunned to death. Like that sort of level of over the top kind of almost a parody kind of idea.
Like literally firing bullets into a rubber dummy kind of.
Yeah. There are moments in this that are sort of comparable to that, but goddamn, this film is brutal as fuck. It's enjoyable as fuck. Vince Vaughn deserves an Oscar for this performance. I personally believe, and I actually just bought this movie tonight. Earlier tonight, I was out in the store and saw it and then picked it up because I love this movie that much. It's in my collection now, and everybody should fucking see this film. It's an exercise in just amazing filmmaking and exploitation filmmaking, and everyone should see it. So there you go.
Awesome.
And your next one, Daniel.
My next one. This is my number 10 alphabetically, and actually probably the most fun I had in a movie theater this year, and that was Thor Ragnarok.
I've seen it, and I can see why you enjoyed it. It is a fun fucking movie.
The everything that you said about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I kind of feel about Thor Ragnarok, right? Yeah, where Thor Ragnarok is, I mean, it's funny how like the sort of once Guardians happened, the Marvel realized, oh, we can tell some more jokes. Yeah. We don't have to sort of do because like the first Thor film is sort of like the goofy romantic comedy, sort of action film, which is fine. I mean, it's very gifable, right? You know, there's a big Tumblr community for that. The second Thor film was a piece of shit. That was
it's just very
it's trying to do this dark. It's trying to do the Loki Thor relationship. It's trying so hard to do so much, and it's just, I don't know. Kat Dennings is cute in it. I love Kat Dennings and everything.
It's
you know,
doing a lot of stuff no one cares about. That's basically what it is.
Just, if they learned the wrong lesson from the Avengers, right?
Right.
They're like, okay, we need to do the. We've got to kind of give you more Tom Hiddleston, and really like less Tom Hiddleston, but like good Tom Hiddleston is, you know. And they're trying to kind of play off the same thing. Whereas I think Thor Ragnarok gives us less Tom Hiddleston, but sort of gives him something else to do, but also gives us a sort of a new dynamic, because suddenly like Thor and the Hulk are sort of together in this kind of,
it's a buddy comedy between those two.
It becomes a buddy comedy between those two, and I mean, it's got a real wit to it. It's got a real, I mean, almost from the very first frames, it's just got, there's a real like note of comedy to it. And real stakes, and there's a real revolutionary fervor to it as well. I mean, the whole, spoilers for Thor Ragnarok, but like the whole story kind of hinges on, you know, Thor thinks he's supposed to prevent Ragnarok, but really like the whole thing is like, no, you're going to destroy your society. Like that's not, like, burn it to the fucking ground, which is, again, is a very like 2017 sentiment. Just burn the thing to the ground, and we'll start over. And then they become refugees that are probably gonna like try to land in Norway,
right?
Because there's this, and it's like, oh my god, there's a lot of really interesting stuff buried under the surface of this film. But you can also just treat it as, my god, it's just such a little jolt of energy, and it's got so much like really cool shit in it. It's so much fun. And
that's a great pick. I'm actually surprised I didn't put it on my list, at least for an honorable mention. Now that you mention it,
I'd also like to mention, just before we move on, Doctor Strange. I saw.
Yeah,
I remember it. I saw it this year. I remembered it after I'd already made my list while we were talking, and that totally would be on this list somewhere.
Nice,
because that one was, I thought was going to be terrible. Because
it was so much better than anyone expected.
Like, it gets past the, like, it's a white guy doing Eastern, quote unquote, Eastern magic fairly quickly, and kind of deals with the origins of the character.
Doctor Strange is actually the better version of the Iron Fist Marvel series.
That's definitely true.
That's what it is.
And I really like Doctor Strange ends perfectly, because it's, you know, Doctor Strange basically like beats the big bad guy with his brain, which is always the best thing.
Such a great sequence. It's like, I'll just keep going through this fucking time loop until you give up, motherfucker.
Exactly, and not. I mean, it does have the big special effects sequence, but it's not like a giant thing falling from the sky.
Yeah.
Which I'm happy to never see that again in a Marvel film. I'm happy to just not ever have to do that again.
They need to move away from that shit. They definitely do. But they probably won't, because Infinity Gauntlet, so
Infinity War is happening. Yeah, so we'll see. But anyway, Benedict Cumberbatch is in Thor Ragnarok. And I don't really love Benedict Cumberbatch in things, but I like him as this character, and I think once you kind of get past the sort of origins of the character, I think he's a lot of fun. And again, he has a really great sequence with Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, he does.
And it doesn't overplay his welcome. So just wanted to throw that in as sort of the bonus on the Thor Ragnarok discussion. Marvel is, you know, it's funny. Like, I've got like 2 Marvel films on this list, and I realistically could have 3 or 4. I mean, I could have put Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 on this. And it's not even like I love these films, but I love what they're doing, and I kind of like, it's probably the best sort of franchise player out there right now. Like,
right.
They get casting and sort of plotting and sort of like they're really kind of hitting on all cylinders right now, and I appreciate that. So
no, I totally agree. Okay, so my last pick, this is my number 1 movie of 2017, first time watch. This is Lake Mungo from 2008. And this is fucking amazing. This is a faux documentary style kind of film. There are found footage elements in it, but it's presented as a documentary. It's an Australian film, and this is basically about the events after the death of a 16-year-old girl and how it affects the family and how she may be coming back from the grave and haunting them. Honestly, this film affected me quite a bit watching it. It actually scared me. It actually made me uneasy. The way it's presented, it feels like a legit documentary. Like if you just sort of came into this cold and watched this, you might think it's an actual sort of TV-produced documentary about a family whose daughter had died. It's that well done. And basically you watch the struggle of this family who take on the services of a psychic to try to maybe contact their dead daughter. There are several revelations and twists in this film. I just don't want to go into detail because I don't want to ruin this for anybody who have not seen this. At times there are twists that sort of bring you back. If you're a skeptical person like me, certain twists in this bring you back down to reality and go, of course, okay, I accept that. Like I understand where this film's going now, and I accept what's going on, and it makes more sense. But then by the end of this film, it just gets really fucking haunting and scary and sad. And really, I mean, ghost stories, what are they? They're more often explorations and responses to grief and loss more than anything else. Yeah. And this film is one of the more impactful explorations of grief and loss that I've ever seen on film. And whether it be, straight up dramatic Hollywood productions or this, which is presented as a legit documentary, it's so sad. It's so fucking sad. It's so fucking haunting. And this is the movie that affected me emotionally more than anything I'd seen this year. And it scared me, and it's great. It's fucking great. It's probably the best ghost story I've ever seen on film. And
wow.
That's where I'll leave it.
It's a good place to leave it.
Yeah. Highest recommendation from me.
Yeah, no, I keep saying this, but again, that sounds like something we need to put on the list. And
yeah.
Anything that means that much to you, I definitely want to see. And the best way to make me see it is to put it on our review list.
All right. Well, yeah, we'll throw that one on. But yeah, there we go. Holy shit. 2017.
Yeah. 2017. Look at that. I'm setting a goal to watch 100 films in 2018. Like that's
cool.
So to get back into watching films more regularly, may or may not talk so much about them, in what we've been watching. I don't know, just kind of depends. Watch more stuff, kind of catch up on stuff I've missed lately, and I feel like 100 films is basically one every 3 days, which is doable.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So shit, people listening to this,
Lee is fairly obviously tipsy at this point. So
I am a little.
We're gonna wrap it up. We're gonna wrap it up.
We're gonna wrap it up. I just want to say, everybody listening, although you may have not contributed your top 10s or best ofs or whatever for first time watches 2017, if you want to do it after this, please feel free, and we'll read them on future podcasts. But until then, we're going to be looking at 1980s sci-fi for the next little while.
Yeah, a couple episodes, like 2 or 3 episodes. I don't know. Do we know where you want to go?
Well, what do you feel like? We've got a couple things on our list for.
I'm kind of thinking let's do Cherry 2000 and Radioactive Dreams.
Sounds good.
Do the twofer. Cherry 2000 I've seen. I grew up with as a kid.
Yeah, same here.
I haven't seen in like 20 years, or it can't. It's not 30 years, but it's a long time.
Yeah.
And but Radioactive Dreams I've actually not seen, but I know by reputation. So I'm excited to kind of do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found both of those, and I kind of put it to Lee in the back channel where we like chat about stuff we might want to do, and he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." So let's do it. Let's bang
we
those
were
out.
kind of considering 1980s sci-fi. So Daniel brought those ones up, and I mean, we've also got on the table like Enemy Mine and Last Starfighter and Inner Space.
Inner Space is one that I kind of grew up with that I don't know how well that's going to hold up, but I think it'll be a fun conversation. I'll be able to talk a lot about that. Also, holy shit, another Meg Ryan. Oh, Meg Ryan and Melanie Griffith in the same series. That's going to be a great.
Yeah.
Enemy Mine, I think, didn't we have a co-host? Maybe wasn't Kit going to show up for that one? Or
I think it was either Kit or James. One of them.
Okay, so we might have to schedule that one out, but we'll
we'll figure it.
But yeah, I think we do. Let's start off with the twofer and do the two. I don't feel like either one of these films is going to be too involved in terms of theme and characters. So I think Cherry 2000 and Radioactive Dreams is the place to start.
That's the next episode, ladies and gentlemen.
First real episode of 2018.
Yeah, first real episode 2018. Yeah.
Hey, I'll help us wrap up. How about?
Do you think I'm that far gone?
I've been this far gone before.
Okay, let's see you do the entire wrap up, Daniel. Go.
The entire wrap up. You can find us at tmbdos.podbean.com. You can find us on Facebook. They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. That is the best way to get a hold of us. Although I'm not really on Facebook anymore. So the best way to get a hold of me is to come find me on Twitter at Daniel Lee Harper. Although if you post to the Facebook group, I will see it, but I just don't check it all that often. Yeah, next time we're going to be covering Cherry 2000 and Radioactive Dreams. And until then, drive through.
Well done, sir. All right, we're going.
I've listened to a couple episodes of this. It's fine.
You've listened to a couple. All right. Thank you. Fuck you. Bye. We're gone.
Oh, no.
$12
listening to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. For more episodes, links to our Apple Podcast site, YouTube, and our Facebook group, as well as other websites and podcasts of similar interests, please visit us at tmbdos.podbean.com. Thank you, drive-through, filthy, slimy pervert.